All right, let's get going. Well, first of all, I'm glad to be back in Colorado. I did enjoy my trip back east. It was a very busy whirlwind kind of a trip with a little bit of adventure as well, getting stranded on a highway in the middle of nowhere in rural Virginia with my mom. That was a lot of fun. So anyway, looks like that situation though is going to be taken care of. My mom will be getting a new car. Happy for her. All right, a new series here. When East meets West. This is part one. Now, when cultures meet across vast distances and even time periods, millennia, centuries, we often ask, well, who influenced whom? Well, I believe there exists a better, perhaps more profound question, one that reveals the deepest capacities of human wisdom. What existential, what metaphysical, what cosmological truths did different civilizations discover, listen to this, independently, simply because they were all paying attention to the same world? So I'm going to begin this new series, When East Meets West, with actually the fact of a current crisis we're going through. Our global community is clearly experiencing a period of disharmony. Obviously, all of us have been following the news events, but this has been going on for a long time. So in light of this, I chose to explore the Taoist principle of yin and yang today. This principle often appears as some exotic wisdom of the East. But in the eyes of many Western artists, when it appears, it is an experience of recognition. Now, born in ancient China, the principle describes reality not as static or fixed, but as a living process of reciprocal transformation. Yin, here's the attributes of yin. It is receptive, dark, inward, hidden, liquid, lunar, and feminine. The yang is active, bright, outward, formative, solid, solar, and masculine. This is important. Neither are complete without the other. And each contains the seed of its opposite. And together they generate the rhythm of existence itself. Now, unfortunately, in our current milieu, our current climate, political climate, the yin and the yang are in battle, are seen as violently antagonistic towards one another rather than complementary. So that's quite unfortunate. Hopefully, this presentation will bring some sense of calm and hope to us. This presentation explores a remarkable convergence. How Western art, myth, and philosophy independently discovered and expressed the same fundamental insight about harmony, balance, and the creative tension between opposites. Now, I'm going to compare several paintings from Eastern and Western traditions, each one a visual meditation on the necessity of balance for the sake of harmony. Such wisdom is born of deep attention to the nature of reality itself. So let's begin by understanding the symbolic language we're exploring. The Teijitu, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Those of you who are familiar with Eastern philosophy may correct me on that. I've put the word there in parentheses. It refers to the familiar dark and light circle with interlocking teardrops. And it encodes several crucial truths. First, that reality is circular and dynamic, not linear and static. Second, that at the height of yang, light, yin, the dark, begins to emerge, and vice versa. Third, that each principle contains the seed of its opposite. The light dot is in the dark, and the dark dot is in the light. This is not mere symmetry, it is a cosmological statement about the nature of reality, a statement about the nature of social and cultural processes as well. Also, the circle spins. You can sort of see the energy there, the motion. And day becomes night, which becomes day. Winter becomes summer, becomes winter. Inhalation becomes exhalation, becomes inhalation. Nothing rests in pure extremity. Everything flows towards its complement. So let's start with this work. Mayan's masterwork expresses a profound Chinese aesthetic principle, the power of emptiness. In this work, a scholar walks along a path that occupies only the lower corner of the composition. The rest of the work, nearly 3/4 of the silk that it's painted on, or I guess inked on, well, that's just empty space, suggesting mist, air, and infinite possibility. So just take a few seconds just to experience the work. This emptiness is not absence. It is yin in its purest form, receptive, generative, full of potential. Now, the painted elements representing yang only have meaning because of what surrounds them. Now, the Western traditional eye, which is so eager to fill up space, must learn a new way of seeing here. Emptiness is not what needs to be filled, it is what allows form to breathe. Well, let's compare the subject and the energy in this work with the subject and energy of this work that you're all familiar with. Caspar David Friedrich's Wander Above the Sea of Fog embodies yin-yang principles through its dark, stark dualities. The active, yang-like lone figure stands against the infinite passive fog, and the known solid rock juts up into the mysterious spatial unknown, creating a cosmic balance of contemplation and sublime awe. So just take a few seconds to experience this work. I believe that viewing the previous work by Ma Yan helps us see this work with fresh eyes and penetrate its visual language better. Now, the Japanese Zen monk Sesshu traveled to China and absorbed the painting tradition he encountered there, and then transformed it with his own fierce economy of brushwork. This winter landscape is all sharp angles and stark contrasts. Bare trees like calligraphy against white snow. Dark rocks breaking through pale ground. Notice the sharp vertical and horizontal lines dividing left and right of this landscape. The right side has strong lines detailing the landscape, and the left side creates empty space. Just take a few seconds to breathe this work in. Winter itself is a yin season. It's inward, it's dormant, it's receptive. Yet Yeshu renders it with yang energy, bold, angular, assertive strokes. This paradox creates visual tension. Do you sense that tension? The painting is cold yet alive. It's empty yet full of potential energy. Yin and yang are both necessary relational principles, both integral aspects of reality. Even in the depths of winter, a yin season, there is the sharp clarity of yang. Well, let's compare Seshu's use of the yin and yang principles with the dark and light swirling together in this work by J.M.W. Turner. Turner's late paintings dissolve form into light and color. In Snowstorm, a steamboat is barely visible within a vortex of wind, water, and snow. The composition is almost abstract, a whirlwind of force with the boat at its center. Just take a few seconds with this work as well. Well, here we see the yang, which is the boat, the human technology, human purpose, engulfed by yin, this darkening storm, nature's formless power. And yet the boat persists. The painting captures the moment of maximum tension between opposites. Neither nature nor the man-made structure has triumphed. This precarious balance creates the painting's terrifying energy. Turner shows that harmony is not always peaceful. Sometimes it is the dynamic tension of opposing forces held in momentary equilibrium. Well, now, take the subject and energy of this work and compare it to perhaps the most famous Japanese artwork in the West, the Great Wave. It shows Mount Fuji small and stable in the distance, while a massive wave with claw-like foam threatens to engulf boats in the foreground. The dynamic tension is extraordinary. The wave, usually yin in its fluid, yielding nature, here rises with yang force and aggression, like in Turner's painting. Mount Fuji, solid, enduring, unchanging, in other words, the yang, appears small and passive with yin energy, as if it is about to be engulfed with the boats. The painting demonstrates that yin and yang are not fixed attributes, but relational and contextual. What is normally yin, whether water or the season of winter, may become incarnate with yang force. Now, on this 6-panel folding screen, pine trees emerge from and dissolve into a mist-like atmosphere. Tohaku uses ink wash to create layers of visibility and invisibility. Some trees are sharp and clear, others barely suggested. The mist, which is the yin in the work, does not obscure the trees, the yang. It reveals them by degrees, creating depth and atmosphere. This is one of the most profound visual expressions of yin-yang philosophy. That clarity and mystery are not opposed, but interdependent. We understand form more deeply when also encountering formlessness. The visible gains meaning from its relationship to the invisible. Now, in this ink work, a tiny figure stands atop a mountain peak, surrounded by vast expanses of rock and sky. This compositional choice, the smallness of humanity within the grandeur of nature, appears repeatedly in Chinese landscape painting. It is not an expression of human insignificance, but of proper proportion. The human figure in this work, like in Caspar David Friedrich's Wanderer, embodies yang. It's conscious, active, creative, and finds its meaning within the larger rhythms of nature, which is the yin. The poet does not conquer the mountain, he participates in it. This is the ethical dimension of yin-yang thinking, knowing one's place within a larger whole. Let's put these two previous works side by side. Taking the expression and subject of both the pine trees, which reveals the relationship between light and dark, and Poet on a Mountaintop, expressing a state of creative contemplation. Well, if we do this, I think we will see similar principles expressed in this traditionally Western subject, the penitent Magdalene. De la Tour's candlelit paintings create a unique atmosphere of stillness and introspection. In the penitent Magdalene, a woman contemplates a skull by candlelight. The flame is the only bright element in the darkness. But the flame produces various shades of light and dark, which reveal in the woman subject her own poetic soul. Instead of her being on a mountaintop, though, we meet the poet in a still small room, pregnant with creative potential. Take a few seconds to absorb this work. The candle flame is yang. It's small, bright, vertical, active. It flickers and consumes. But the surrounding darkness is yin. It's vast. It's receptive. It's still. The woman's contemplation bridges them. Consciousness of yang resting in the mystery of yin. The painting suggests that wisdom comes not from abolishing darkness, but from holding a small light within it. Well, now with surrealist Salvador Dali, we have evidence of conscious cultural borrowing. These two works are explicitly about yin and yang. You can probably see the symbol pretty clearly here. Dali takes the yin-yang principle, which is visible to all of us, and expresses it in a uniquely expressionistic manner, combined with surrealistic attributes. Yes, this is cultural appropriation, but the whole history of art is one of cultural appropriation. And as we have seen so far, I hope, often what is borrowed is born more from recognition than discovery. Dali is known for integrating scientific concepts with religious and mythological narratives, exploring humanity's place in the universe and the subconscious mind's role in understanding reality. In these works, Dali seems to imply that the yin-yang principle is manifest in the vital energies of the physical world. But we in the West need a surrealistic perspective to recognize it consciously. Now, here is an early Dali, again exploring yin and yang in a Western context. Emperdonese Yang and Yin is a surrealistic painting in the classic style of Dali, depicting a man and child gazing at biomorphic rock formations. The setting is on the plains of Ampurdon, which is in Catalonia, Spain. That's where Dali was from. Take a moment with this work. It evokes a mystical desert-like atmosphere with interlocking stones that symbolize yin-yang. And there's also the yang of earth blessed by the yin of sky. The clouds here appearing as some kind of intimate conversation between the two energies. Well, now back to the Renaissance, which I've been focusing on in recent art brunches. And this may strike us as very different from the art of the East. But Leonardo's revolutionary technique of chiaroscuro, the dramatic interplay of light and shadow, is fundamentally a yin-yang practice. In these two versions of the Virgin of the Rocks, figures emerge from deep shadow. Light reveals faces, hands, the Christ child. But shadow is not simply absence, it creates depth, mystery, spatial recession. Leonardo understood that form is revealed through contrast. Light without shadow would be flat and meaningless. Shadow without light would be invisible. Like yin and yang, each defines the other. His sfumato technique, where forms blend into shadow without hard edges, sort of like the pine trees of Hasegawa that we saw earlier, further dissolves the boundary between opposites, creating the breathing, living quality his paintings possess. Now notice how Da Vinci has used the rocky landscape in the back, with the light and color of sky and empty space behind it. Take a moment in each work to notice that. Keep your eyes on that backdrop of rock and sky for a moment. It's very similar to how Zhang Lu uses it in this mountainscape. As we have seen, traditional Chinese landscape paintings inherently represent the balance between yin, here seen in the light, misty haze, soft and yielding, and yang in the Rocky Mountain, which is solid, strong. The dynamic interplay of the solid mountain forms and the use of negative space or haze would represent this fundamental balance of cosmic forces. Mountains themselves are symbols of resilience and eternity, and also places of seclusion and spiritual cultivation in Taoist tradition. The painting provides a setting for contemplation, where external worldly activity ceases, allowing for internal reflection and a realization of the harmony of the universe, which is a central goal of Taoist practice. Well, let's compare this mountainscape to another Western masterpiece, Mont Sainte-Victoire by Paul Cézanne. Cézanne painted this mountain dozens of times, seeking to capture not its appearance, but its essential structure. In his late versions, he breaks the mountain into planes of color that seem to both construct and dissolve forms simultaneously. Here we see yang in the solid mountain, geometric structure, permanence, rendered through yin means, which is the artist's fluid brushwork, atmospheric use of color, and openness. But the mountain with the sky also possesses the dark blue of yin, while the foreground in contrast holds the lighter solidity of yang. The painting is neither purely representational nor purely abstract. It holds the tension between form and formlessness. Cézanne's approach influenced Cubism and abstract art, but it can also be seen as a Western parallel to the Chinese tradition of painting mountains as spiritual exercises. Spiritual exercises in understanding structure contrasted with space. Let's look again at Zhang Lu's work. This time focusing on the sun floating in the light, hazy sky. Yang enveloped by yin. And let's compare this work to this famous Monet work. The painting that gave Impressionism its name shows Le Havre harbor at dawn. The sun appears as an orange disk reflected in rippling water. Everything else, the boats, the buildings, the water, is only suggested through loose brushwork and atmospheric haze. Dawn and dusk are the quintessential yin-yang moments, the transition between darkness and light, night and day. Monet captures this liminal quality through dissolution of form. The solid objects of yang dissolve into the light and atmosphere of yin. The painting is not about things, but about the quality of seeing, the way light transforms vision. This emphasis on perception over object is remarkably close to Buddhist and Taoist perspectives. And now another iconic Western work. Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam may seem far from Taoist principles like yin and yang, but a closer look reveals these aspects as well. God reaches toward Adam, their fingers nearly touching. The composition is built on symmetry and complementarity. God's form is surrounded by angels and billowing drapery, suggesting heaven's spirit, yang energy. Whereas Adam reclines on earth, his body languid. And notice the receptive energy in Adam, very yin-like. You see the subtlety? God leans toward Adam with active effort, while Adam's finger is barely raised. He is receptive rather than grasping. Creation happens in the tiny gap between yin and yang, the space where opposites meet without merging. The famous spark we imagine jumping between their fingers is yang, active, creative force, which moves then into yin, receptive materiality. Well, there are few abstract artists of the West who more overtly represent Taoist principles in their art than Mark Rothko. Rothko's color field paintings seem to abandon representation entirely, and yet they are deeply concerned with balance and relationship. Yellow and blue, like most of Rothko's color field works, offers planes of luminous color which seem to float on the canvas. The edges are soft, bleeding into each other. This is pure yin-yang abstracted to its essence. Warm, cool, light, dark, advancing, receding, defined, undefined. The painting has no subject except relationship itself. Like the yin-yang symbol, it is about the interaction of opposites creating a unified field. Rothko wanted viewers to stand close and be enveloped, to experience the painting not as object, but as environment, which is a fundamentally yin way of relating to art. Well, this comparison of recognition and alignment is not meant to gloss over the differences between East and West. The cultural contexts, religious frameworks, and aesthetic values differ between East and West, sometimes profoundly. But a Chinese landscape painter approaches their subject from a different perspective than, say, Monet or Cézanne. And yet we have discovered mutual recognition. Both traditions, through deep attention to reality, arrived at similar insights. That opposites are interdependent, not antagonistic. Light needs shadow. Form needs emptiness. Action needs receptivity. It is shown that harmony is dynamic, not static. Balance is a constant calibration, like walking or breathing, or perhaps even better, like a dance. We've also seen that wisdom involves knowing when to yield and when to assert, and also that emptiness is not absence, but potential. The space around painted forms, the silence between musical notes, the stillness within action, these are not merely absence, but generative presence. Let me ask you, what changes when we see Western art through the lens of yin-yang? Perhaps we notice what we had overlooked before, the crucial role of shadow in Leonardo da Vinci, the liminal moments J.M.W. Turner captures between form and dissolution. The Chinese painter, seeing George de la Tour's Magdalene, recognizes the same truth about light emerging from darkness. And the Western viewer encountering Hasegawa Tohaku's Pine Trees recognizes the same wisdom about form and formlessness. So this is not cultural appropriation or flattening of differences. It is the recognition that different languages can speak the same truth, though it may require deeper reflection to see it. The world we all inhabit, with its days and nights, its seasons, its rhythms of inhalation and exhalation, teaches similar lessons to those who pay attention. So when East meets West, neither loses its distinctiveness. Instead, each finds its own insights reflected and deepened. But I do want to emphasize this. Encountering the East helps us better see our own tradition. Isn't that so? I mean, how many of you saw something more in the classic Western art that I showed than you might have before also viewing art of the East? And with that question, I'll open it up for your comments or perhaps your own questions. And if you need me to go back to another slide, I will.